They always called me the good one. Not to my face, of course. That would have implied appreciation. No, I was the responsible one. The reliable one. The girl who has her life together. Titles tossed around like praise, but really just codes for the one we can take from without ever giving back. My name is Diana Miller. I'm 28. And for most of my adult life, I was the financial spine of a family that never once said thank you. I remember the day I left, not because it was loud, but because it was so goddamn quiet. No screaming match. No suitcase thrown down the stairs. Just silence. Mom was glued to her soap opera. Dad was sorting insurance bills like he was solving world hunger. Brandon, my older brother, 32 going on 16, was sprawled on the couch, controller in hand, shouting at his video game. I walked past them all with a bag over my shoulder. No one looked up. Not even when I paused at the front door. And that silence told me everything. That I wasn't a daughter. I was a walking credit card. An emotional crutch. An invisible provider in a house that only remembered my name when something broke. I moved into a one-bedroom apartment on the east side of Charlington. 3rd floor. Old wood floors. Thin walls. Rent barely affordable. But for the first time in years, the silence belonged to me. I'd done everything right. Full ride to Eastbrook University. Top of my finance class. Landed a job at a prestigious investment firm before graduation. Paid off my student loans before I even turned 26. While Brandon, he dropped out of art school, drifted through a dozen jobs, and still got more affection in a day than I'd had my whole damn life. He was trying. I was just expected to keep fixing things. I started working at 16, not for pocket money, but because I knew no one else would step in if something went wrong. I cleaned pastry trays and scrubbed floors while my friends went to the movies. Bought my first computer secondhand just to finish assignments on time. Brandon wanted a new MacBook? Mom opened a credit card that same day. He's restarting his life, she'd said. When I got a promotion at work, Mom didn't even ask what for. She just texted. Since you make more now, could you help with the water heater this month? No, congrats. Just another hand reaching into my pockets. It didn't matter that I worked 60-hour weeks. That I skipped vacations. That I turned down dinner invites because I had to send Brandon gas money again. I was the one who had so much. And they were the ones who needed me. So I helped. For years. Mortgage short this month? I covered it. Brandon's birthday coming up? I paid for it. Dad's back meds? Done. Roof leaking? Covered. I kept receipts like they were war medals. But there were no thank yous. Only more requests. Until one night, it all cracked. It was raining. I'd just come off a double shift and stopped by their house, arms full of groceries I couldn't afford. I set the bags on the counter like I always did. Mom barely looked up. Instead, she crossed her arms. Diana, we need to talk. The room got cold. My pulse slowed. I knew that tone, the one she used before delivering another blow wrapped in entitlement. What you're sending, she said, it's no longer enough. I froze. Not thank you. Not how are you. Not we're sorry we've taken so much. Just, not enough. Dad chimed in from the living room, voice full of tired guilt. You live alone. You make good money. Meanwhile, we're barely surviving. Doesn't that seem unfair to you? Unfair. He said unfair. Brandon didn't even look up from the couch. Just muttered, it's not like you're struggling. What's wrong with sharing a little? I looked at them, the 3 people I had held up like cracked pillars in a crumbling house. And all they saw was a source. A line of credit with a face. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I simply said, sharing goes both ways. All you ever do is take. Mom's eyes narrowed, lips pinched. That look, the one she used to control the room. Like disapproval could silence truth. If this is so hard for you, she hissed, maybe you should leave. And don't bother coming back. I waited for someone to stop me. To say, wait, we didn't mean it like that. No one did. I left the groceries on the counter. Walked to the door. My voice calm. Deadly calm. All right. I hear you. I'm gone. I stepped into the rain. No one followed. No one called my name. Brandon snorted behind me. So dramatic. I drove straight to a gas station, parked, and opened my contacts. Mom. Blocked. Dad. Blocked. Brandon. Blocked. I didn't cry. I didn't scream into the night. I just exhaled. And in that breath I felt it. The first taste of something I hadn't had in a decade. Freedom. But that freedom didn't last long. Because 3 months later they came back. Not with apologies. Not with remorse. But with the one thing that always worked before, guilt. And that's when I realized. They weren't just broke. They were hiding something. Something much worse than unpaid bills. And this time I wasn't going to forgive it. I was going to bury it. I wish I could say I spent those first few months in peace. That I danced barefoot in my apartment to soft jazz, drank wine on my tiny balcony, felt the full weight of liberation. But trauma doesn't disappear just because you change your address. It lingers. It scratches. It whispers. At first I'd jump every time my phone buzzed. Ghost calls. Phantom guilt. The kind that lives in your chest and hisses, "You're a bad daughter. You abandoned them." But I held the line. No calls. No transfers. No midnight grocery runs. I even started therapy. Not because I wanted to heal. I didn't even know what that meant. But because I needed someone to witness the truth. Someone to say, "No, Diana, you're not crazy. You were used." But just as I started building something resembling a life, the messages started. First from Mom. "Your dad just got a warning letter. It's serious. Please just call me." I stared at the screen for a long time. Not because I didn't care. But because I knew that tone. The urgency. The script. Every message a ticking time bomb designed to make me feel again. Feel enough to open my banking app. I didn't respond. Then came the calls. 1 a day. Then 2. Then 5. From different numbers. Dad. Mom. Brandon. The last voicemail that week? "If Mom and Dad lose the house, that's on you. Brandon." That little line flipped a switch in my brain I didn't know I still had. On me. As if I hadn't held that damn house together for 2 years. As if they hadn't turned my salary into their savings account. As if I didn't cancel a down payment on my dream apartment just to keep their roof from caving in. I didn't scream. I didn't reply. I got smart. I made tea. Sat down at my desk. Pulled out my laptop and did something I had never done in all the years of bailing them out. I opened the mortgage account. The one under Dad's name. The one I'd been sending money to faithfully like a loyal foot soldier. The history loaded. Every payment for me, clear, precise, on time. And then a gap. A big one. No mortgage payments had been made for the last 8 months. I froze. 8 months. 3 of which I was still sending money. I opened my own banking app. Cross-referenced transfers. Dates lined up. I had sent almost $3,000 after the last mortgage payment was made. And none of it went toward the house. It was like standing in front of a building you thought was solid, and watching it collapse in silence. My hand trembled as I typed out a message to Dad. "Just checked the mortgage account. It's 8 months overdue. I sent money during that time. What happened?" No response. 15 minutes later. Call from Dad. I didn't answer. Because I wasn't ready to scream. I was ready to investigate. The next morning I called the bank, calm and professional. Like I was talking about a client, not my parents. The representative confirmed what I feared. Last full payment was 8 months ago. The account is now under foreclosure review. I thanked her. Hung up. Then stared at my reflection in the black screen of my laptop. Eyes wide. Face pale. Breath shallow. Where did the money go? There were only 2 options. They lied because they were desperate. They lied because they never intended to tell the truth. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept replaying every call, every urgent message, every favor wrapped in fake warmth. Dad's back meds. Mom's grocery money. Brandon's Photoshop class. Was it all a scam? Was I just a human vending machine, press a button, make a withdrawal, repeat? The next night, I blocked out every light in my apartment. Just me, a single lamp, and the old finance ledger I used to track my support. I flipped through pages, numbers, dates. $980 mortgage, August. $200, Brandon's art software, September. $120 roof repair, October. $300 utility catch-up, November. I'd written them all down like a naive accountant documenting debts that would never be repaid. And still, none of it explained why the mortgage, the one thing they claimed was priority, hadn't been paid. Then I remembered something. A text from Brandon 5 months ago. "Hey, I was thinking of doing something big. Like starting a real art brand. Maybe a website. A small studio." Back then I hadn't replied. Now I was starting to see the picture. What if my mortgage money had been redirected? What if it went toward Brandon's next big idea? What if the house was never the plan, just the excuse? I needed proof. But more than that, I needed leverage. So I waited. Waited for the next call. And sure enough, a day later my phone lit up. Dad again. This time, I answered. Diana, listen. I know, I said flatly. I saw the account. The mortgage hasn't been paid in months. I kept sending money. Where did it go? Silence. Then the worst thing possible. Excuses. Things got complicated, he started. We had other expenses. You mean Brandon had expenses, I snapped. Diana, it wasn't like that. Your brother needed support, we were all. No. You needed someone to fund your denial. That someone was me. But not anymore. Then Mom took the phone. And it was like déjà vu. Tears. Guilt. Gaslighting. You don't understand the stress we're under. You're punishing your family for being imperfect. You used to care. And then the line that nearly broke me. You've changed, Diana. You're not the daughter we raised. She was right. I wasn't. The daughter they raised would have cried. Would have caved. Would have sent another check. But the woman on the phone now? She wasn't built for bending anymore. She was built for burning. And I was just getting started. They thought I'd let it go. After the mortgage lie unraveled, after the phone call laced with guilt and blame, they probably assumed I'd do what I always did. Stew in silence, cry it out, and then give in. They underestimated the damage. They underestimated me. See, people think betrayal happens in one brutal moment. But it doesn't. It's a slow bleed. 1,000 little cuts. Until one day you look down and realize you're drowning in your own generosity. And once I saw the blood trail, I couldn't unsee it. I became obsessed. Not with them, but with the truth. I dug up old bank transfers, emails, texts, even voice memos I'd saved without realizing. I created a digital ledger, every dollar, every reason, every broken promise. 2 years of sacrifices reduced to cold numbers and false justifications. $21,340.75. That's how much I had sent over that period. And that wasn't even counting groceries, gifts, or all the unpaid time I spent driving across counties, fixing their messes. The math wasn't what broke me. It was the realization that I was never helping, I was subsidizing a lie. They didn't fall apart after I left. They'd already been falling, they just used me to soften the landing. But this time, there would be no soft landing. That week, I called in a favor from a friend in real estate. Asked him to run a quick background check on the family home. He hesitated at first, but curiosity won. The results hit harder than I expected. The house I'd been paying the mortgage on? Refinanced twice. Cashed out equity, over $30,000. Both refinances happened during the same time they claimed they couldn't make ends meet. They used their daughter's support to qualify, then pulled money out behind my back. And didn't use any of it to cover the payments afterward. They took my help. Took the bank's trust. Took the house's value. And now it was all circling the drain. For what? For Brandon's failed startup? For weekend getaways they never told me about? For pride? I closed my laptop, stared at the blank wall across from me, and whispered something I didn't even realize I'd been holding in. They're not just toxic. They're thieves. That night, I couldn't sleep. I didn't eat. I walked the city until my shoes wore thin and my legs begged for rest. But I kept seeing it, Brandon's smug shrug, Mom's sharp tone, Dad's practiced helplessness. I wasn't just angry. I was done. So I planned. Not revenge in the cartoonish, dramatic sense, no fires, no screaming matches. No broken dishes or restraining orders. No, this would be cleaner. Sharper. Surgical. I started by filing a formal report with the bank about the misuse of mortgage funds. Told them I had been unknowingly sending money under the belief that it was for the house. I attached all my receipts. Let them deal with that fallout. Then I contacted a tax professional. Sent her my entire ledger, told her I was concerned I'd been manipulated into co-financing someone else's lifestyle. Asked if there were grounds to open an investigation into fraud or misrepresentation, especially since the funds were misused after being framed as loans. She didn't promise anything, but she took it seriously. That was enough. Then came the final step, the one I'd been dreading but also craving. I drove to their house. Not to beg, not to yell, to deliver. When I pulled up, the place already looked different. The grass hadn't been cut. Paint chipping. A foreclosure notice taped to the inside of the window, not yet visible from the street. No one greeted me. I rang the bell. Mom opened the door, eyes wide with surprise and something else, fear. Diana, she breathed like I was a ghost. I came to drop something off. I handed her a sealed envelope. She didn't open it right away. What is this? My ledger, I said. Every dollar. Every excuse. Every lie. She swallowed hard. I also reported the mortgage history to the bank. They may reach out. Her face paled. You what? You lied to me. And you used me. That's not family. That's exploitation. She stepped back, like the words physically hit her. Please, she whispered. Your dad's in a bad way. Brandon's. Still jobless and full of opinions? I snapped. Yeah. Some things never change. Brandon appeared in the hallway, shirtless, annoyed. What's she doing here? She's delivering the bill, I said, dead calm. The real one. He scoffed. So what? You're gonna sue us now? Drag your own family through court? I looked him dead in the eyes. I don't have to. You already dragged yourselves. His smirk faltered. Dad stepped into view behind them. Older. Smaller somehow. Like he'd finally started to feel the weight of what they'd built and burned. He didn't speak. Didn't need to. I turned to leave. And just before I reached the sidewalk, I heard Mom's voice crack through the air. You think this makes you better than us? I stopped. Didn't turn around. No, I said. It just makes me free. I got into my car. Pulled away. But I didn't go home. I drove to the park where I used to bike as a teenager. Sat on a bench, shoes in the dirt, staring at the lake. My hands were still shaking. Not from fear. From the rush of finally taking my power back. But that peace was short-lived. Because 3 days later I got an email. Not from them. From a lawyer. Subject line. Notice of family claim, informal petition for financial mediation. My heart sank. They weren't just playing victim anymore. They were going to try and take me down with them. The email stared back at me like a threat dressed in civility. Informal petition for financial mediation. They wanted to settle things. That was the polite way of saying, we're about to make you the villain unless you keep paying. I reread the email a dozen times, expecting to find a joke somewhere in the footer. But it wasn't a prank. It was real. And it was war. I sat there in my kitchen, still in my work clothes, the soft hum of the fridge the only sound in the apartment. My tea had gone cold. My heart hadn't stopped pounding since I read the subject line. They were accusing me of what exactly? Of abandoning family? Of refusing to subsidize dysfunction? Of breaking a toxic pattern that had fed them for years? The informal petition was a bluff, legally speaking. It had no real power. But it was a warning shot. A way to show they were willing to escalate. Willing to weaponize guilt on paper. They claimed I'd made verbal commitments. That my support had created reasonable expectations of ongoing aid. That I had benefited emotionally from the arrangement. Emotionally? I laughed. A dry, bitter sound. If by emotionally they meant gaslit into compliance, then yeah, sure. I'd benefited. The irony was suffocating. They were trying to spin my years of silent sacrifice into a contract. Trying to twist kindness into a legal liability. I forwarded the email to my lawyer, a no-nonsense woman named Camille who'd handled my firm's most brutal financial audits. She called me within the hour. First of all, she said, this is garbage. They've got no case. Second, are you okay? I wasn't. But I said I was. Camille paused, then her tone shifted like she'd slipped into war mode. They're bluffing, Diana. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't hit back. Sometimes the best defense is a public record. I knew what she meant. I'd been avoiding it. But now? Now it was time. I filed a formal cease and desist. Drafted a personal affidavit detailing every transfer, every message, every lie. Attached spreadsheets, screenshots, timestamps. And Camille submitted the packet to the mediation firm with a statement that left no room for misinterpretation. My client is not a trust fund. She is not an asset. And she is no longer available for exploitation. It felt like a punch through glass. Sharp. Final. But when I got home that night, I sat on my bed and trembled. Because there's a cost to crossing that line. A cost to saying, this isn't family anymore. This is survival. The next day, Brandon texted me from a new number. Guess you're proud of yourself now. Hope your little power trip was worth it. I blocked him. An hour later. A voicemail from Mom. Crying. Saying Dad's health was deteriorating and that she didn't have the strength to keep the house going. Then came the guilt parade. We're your parents. We did our best. You'll regret this someday. What will people think of you? What people thought of me used to matter. Now all I could think about was the truth. They'd built a kingdom on my labor, then lit it on fire when I stopped kneeling. And now they were choking on the smoke and still blaming me. A week later, I got an envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a copy of my childhood drawing, one I hadn't seen in years. A crayon sketch of our house. The sun, the tree, a crooked little family standing in front. Written in slanted handwriting at the bottom. Diana's home forever. I stared at it so long I forgot to breathe. This was their last weapon. Nostalgia. Weaponized memory. They wanted me to remember the good times. The pancakes on Sundays. The birthday parties. The nights Mom stayed up with me during finals. Dad cheering at my graduation. And yes, those things happened. But they didn't erase what came after. They didn't erase being used like a bank machine. Didn't erase being guilt for chasing independence. Didn't erase watching Brandon get praise for failing while I got silence for succeeding. I folded the drawing. Burned it in my kitchen sink. Watched the paper curl into ash, the little stick figure family dissolving under flame. Not because I hated what it represented, but because it no longer represented me. The mediation date was set for the following Tuesday. I wasn't going. Camille would handle it, with documentation, statements, and all the emotional artillery they never saw coming. But I needed closure. My own kind. So I did something drastic. I booked a private investigator. Not to spy. To trace. I needed to know where the money went. All of it. I needed proof. Not for court. For myself. And what he found shattered something I didn't know was still intact. The money, the 3 final mortgage transfers I made before going silent, didn't go toward groceries or roof repairs or even Brandon's latest delusion. They were transferred to a joint account. Brandon and Mom used the seed money for an art cafe startup. I sat there scrolling through the screenshots. A business license under both their names. Filed 4 months before they told me they were starving. And the worst part? They used my name as a reference on the business documents. Like I had endorsed it. Like I was a part of it. I felt sick. That wasn't just betrayal. That was identity theft. I stared at my hands. They were shaking again. Not from fear this time. From clarity. This wasn't dysfunction. This wasn't miscommunication. This was strategic manipulation. They knew exactly what they were doing. And now? So did I. I didn't tell Camille. Not yet. Because something deeper was stirring. Something that couldn't be solved with legal documents. Something primal. They tried to turn me into a cautionary tale. Now I was going to become their consequence. Revenge doesn't always look like a shattered windshield or a courtroom showdown. Sometimes it looks like removal. Complete, deliberate, surgical erasure. Of your presence. Of your labor. Of your silence. They built their whole world on the idea that I wouldn't walk away. That I'd always come back. Always cave. Always choose peace over the discomfort of telling the truth. But this time I didn't just walk away. I dismantled the very foundation they stood on. The investigators' report laid it out in brutal, color-coded detail. Brandon and Mom had started a business with my money. Used my name as a financial backer. Filed documents that listed me as a silent investor. Even referenced past payments, those mortgage wires, as seed capital. I sat there staring at the words and I felt my chest go hollow. Not because I was surprised. Because I had finally stopped being surprised. They hadn't just lied to me. They'd stolen from me. Used my name to legitimize a pipe dream I wasn't even aware existed. A pipe dream that failed within 4 months. Shuttered without a single customer review. Website offline. Equipment resold for pennies. The account drained. My contribution? Vanished. All I had left was proof. And rage. The kind of rage that doesn't scream or burn the house down. The kind that builds. I sat with Camille. Showed her the documents. She looked at me like a therapist who's seen this too many times. Do you want to go after them legally? She asked. We can. You'd have a case. I thought about it. Really thought. The hours. The hearings. The public records. The energy it would take to drag this through every courtroom in the state. And then I shook my head. No, I said quietly. I don't want to fight them anymore. Camille raised an eyebrow. Then what do you want? I looked out the window. At the city I'd rebuilt myself in. At the life that was mine again, however dented, however bruised. And I answered. I want them to be forgotten. So that's what I did. I changed my number. Filed a name variation with the DMV. Updated all legal records to remove them as emergency contacts. Flagged their business registration as fraudulent through my firm's legal branch. Filed an IRS tip about undeclared income from the cafe startup. Anonymous. Then I withdrew every last trace of myself from their lives. Like a ghost closing a door behind her. They would never reach me again. No phone number. No address. No access. I would become a blank space in their history. A name they couldn't say without coughing on the shame. And still, I knew they'd try. They always try. 2 weeks later, Brandon posted on social media. A vague, pitiful update. Some people will never appreciate what family means. Even when you gave them everything. The comments were full of sympathy. He's talking about Diana. Wow, can't believe she left them. She always seemed so put together. And for the first time I didn't feel angry. I felt untouchable. Let them have their pity party. Let them keep spinning the tale of the evil daughter who chose money over love. I knew the truth. And I'd kept the receipts. But one night, something unexpected happened. I got a letter. Mailed. Handwritten. No return address, but I knew that handwriting. Dad. It was short. Just 3 lines. We lost the house. Brandon moved in with a friend. Your mother doesn't talk much anymore. No apology. No ownership. Just loss. I read it once. Then again. Trying to feel something. Pity. Guilt. Rage. But I didn't feel anything. Just distance. Like I was watching a fire from miles away, one I didn't start, didn't fan, but had finally stopped trying to put out. They'd said it themselves. And now they were choking on the smoke. Some nights I still hear the echoes. Mom's voice when she used to say, "You'll regret walking away." Brandon's smug chuckle when he said, "It's not like you're lacking anything." But those voices are ghosts now. And ghosts don't scare me anymore. I wake up in a quiet apartment. Make my coffee. Read books I never had time for. Save money I once poured into a bottomless pit. I have friends who love me for who I am, not what I give. I have a future that's no longer mortgaged by obligation. I have peace. Not because I fought harder than them, but because I finally realized. Walking away isn't weakness. It's what saved my life. To anyone reading this who's ever been called cold for setting boundaries, selfish for saying no, ungrateful for choosing yourself, hear me now. You are not cruel. You are not wrong. And you are not alone. Sometimes the only way to heal is to burn the bridge they keep dragging you across, and watch in silence as they finally learn to swim.